Delighted to tell you that Act Normal, the Contemporary Monologues by Mark Wheeler book, is now out and available from salamanderstreet.com. And there's the cover, which you can see-ish. It's just a photocopy of it, but you can see that there. I'm just going to go through some of the monologues that appear, and I've had monologues in this kind of book before. So this one, Student Monologues, Wheeler. I had Too Much Punch was included in that. It's an American book. And then in the More Scenes and Monologues by Roger, he included one from Dan Nolan as well. A couple from Dan Nolan, I think. So it's not a new idea, but I suggested this ages ago. It was never taken up by my previous publisher, but when I suggested it to George, and particularly George from Salamander Street, particularly with this situation that we're in at the moment where monologues are going to be used much more, he jumped at the chance, and we've worked super quick during the summer to make sure it happens and make sure we can get it out brand new for the school term. I'm going to whiz through some of the ones that you won't have heard of, so I'm probably going to ignore Too Much Punch for Judy, Hard to Swallow, I Love You Mum, because people will know those, but these are the ones that you're going to get that you may not have heard of. So, first of all, Blackout, One Evacuee in Thousands, Operation Pied Piper. It is a musical about World War II. Two speeches from little Jean Eagle, and she is the little girl, little 11-year-old, who is sent off to be evacuated. It's a story based on my mum's life when she was an evacuee, and we've got her being sent out to be evacuated. They're all verbatim accounts, and then the account of her at the end of the war coming back. So a really nice top and tail. Then from my first verbatim play, Graham, World's Fastest Blind Runner, there are two there. The one I'm going to mention specifically is the hit and run accident. Imagine being a blind person, being the only witness to a hit and run accident. It's a really powerful, short monologue, but a really, really powerful one. And the other one in there is June Salmon, Graham's elder sister, who was tasked with taking his eyes in and out when he was a baby and looking after him, and just two beautiful monologues. Then we come to Sweet F.A. Lethal in the Box. This was my musical about a girl footballer, and in it there's a character called Spanner in the Works, and Spanner in the Works introduces all the problems into Sedge's, Sarah Stanbury's, life, and there's a speech there that I've included, which is probably my favourite monologue that I've written, and it was the very first one that I thought, there were two I thought of immediately, but that was one of the ones I thought of to go into the book, and I loved it. It was me attempting to be Stephen Burkoff and do something with rhyme that was a bit, not necessarily having rhymes that go dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, rhyme, dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, rhyme. So putting rhymes in all sorts of different places. I love it. Really good. So head straight for that one. Wacky Soap. There are rhyming couple of ones from Chicken as well. Wacky Soap. If you don't know Wacky Soap, it's a really great little play. It's a musical, a Monty Python style musical, and this is a storyteller section where the storyteller is telling a story. It's a nice, decent, chunky monologue, but it's got all sorts of bizarre things happening with people pretending to be elephants, and a real opportunity for a student to have lots and lots of fun whilst doing a monologue. And I think that's important. I always wanted to motivate my students to do something, to want to do things, and I reckon Wacky Soap will do that. And here we come to the one I'm going to mention, missing Dan Nolan, because this was the first one that I thought of. It's the Pauline monologue where she watches Dan leave and pack his bags, and it's the one with my Year 11s, only Year 11s who are watching. They will remember me demonstrating to them. It's the one little bit of performance I did in my work as a teacher. And it's a great monologue from Pauline, so definitely have a look at that. And you can imagine me going through all those movements where Pauline is acting out the scene that she's telling. So you've got that kind of body back in time and voice now. And also the thing of her acting out Dan's movements, even though she's describing it. Then Tonisha, from a little cartoon film that we did called Kids Who Look Out of the Window, and it was a project commissioned by a school for kids who were excluded, and this is a standalone scene. It's Tonisha telling the whole story of her exclusion and eventually how she settled in the school that she was sent to. Wasn't expecting to settle there, but did settle there. It's a story that teenagers will relate to and be able to tell with that kind of lovely verbatim style that you will be familiar with. So that's Kids Who Look Out of the Window. A couple of Jane's realisations from Shelley's accident in Checkered Flags to Checkered Futures. It's the first scene from the first monologue from that play. I could have chosen any of Jane's monologues. They're so powerful. This is where she was going to watch football. She was going to watch the football match, the Man United Chelsea Cup final, and then Shelley was going to watch that, and then they were off to see their son doing a motorbike race. And suddenly he comes up and says there's news of a car accident. And then the second one is them in hospital learning of how serious this accident has been and how it's going to affect her. Can you hear me, Major Tom? This involves me, so it's me doing a monologue, and it's my recollection of the day David Bowie died. Very poignant for me. I'm going to mention two other ones in Game Over, which close the book. Lauren, Breck's mum, beginning to realise that Lewis Danes LD isn't quite the person she thought he was. And then Ollie's version of that as well, where he is not realising it, and neither were able to speak to one another. And then finally, to close the book, Lauren's last vision of Dan as he went off on a school holiday, and tragically she was never to see him again. And I cannot think of a more awful situation, but a very powerful, emotional speech for a young person to do. There are 30 in the book. Do have a look. I mean, they're all, some of them are short, some of them are longer, so there's a range for different people who are willing to do different amounts. Act Normal comes from one of the monologues here. Those two words were featured in one of the monologues. My son Charlie said to me, "You must use some words coming from them, not from you," and that was a really appropriate one to use. So Act Normal, Contemporary Monologues by Mark Wheeler, out as of today, and today is the 24th of August. It's available on the salamander.com site. salamanderstreet.com site.